So today we're talking about Sun Yat-sen. He's one of those figures in modern history who is just absolutely pivotal. His big dream, to forge a new, unified China from the ashes of a collapsing empire. And that goal, well, it didn't just define his life, it pretty much set the stage for the entire 20th century.
All right, so let's get right into it, because this is the core puzzle of Sun Yat-sen. I mean, how can one guy be a hero to two governments that have been bitter rivals for, over 70 years now? You've got the Republic of China over in Taiwan and the People's Republic of China on the mainland. Both of them hold this guy up as a hero. How on earth is that possible?
And this is where it gets really interesting. It's all in the names they give him. Over in Taiwan, he's the father of the nation. Simple, powerful. But on the mainland, he's the forerunner of the revolution. Now, those might sound kinda similar, but the difference between them is huge. And honestly, that little difference, it's the key to understanding his whole story. So to really get this, we've got to go back to the beginning. Back to his transformation from a doctor to a revolutionary. You see, he was trained as a healer, and he looked at China like it was his patient. And he came to a pretty stark conclusion. This patient didn't just need a little medicine. It needed radical, life-or-death surgery.
You know, Sun started out in a pretty humble peasant family. Nothing to suggest he'd change the world, but then he got an education overseas, and everything changed. He trained to be a doctor in Hong Kong, which was a real melting pot of ideas. And that's where he hooked up with this group of radical thinkers they called the Four Bandits. And right there, that's the start of his, let's call it his double life.
But here's the thing. He wasn't always a revolutionary. Not at all. His first instinct was to try and fix things from the inside. In 1894, he puts together this massive 8,000-character petition on how to modernize China. He travels to give it to this super powerful Qing official, and the guy wouldn't even see him, just completely ignored. For Sun, that was it. That was the moment, the final straw. He realized, okay, this dynasty can't be saved. It has to come down.
And that one decision, man, it kicks off the next chapter of his life, and it is a grind. We're talking decades of just constant struggle, failure after failure, always on the run, living in exile. But the amazing thing, he just never, ever gave up.
I mean, just take a look at this list of failed uprisings. Between 1895 and 1911, he and his crew tried to start at least 10 rebellions. The First Guangzhou Uprising, the Hizhu Uprising, the Yellow Flower Mound Uprising. Every single one of them failed, crushed. A lot of his followers were caught and executed. You just look at this and think, the odds were completely astronomically against him.
So yeah, this life of constant struggles and frequent periods of exile basically turned him into a globe-trotting revolutionary. He was always on the move, raising money from Chinese communities overseas, making alliances in Japan, plotting the next move from some hideout in London. He was a wanted man, fighting for a cause that to anyone else would have looked absolutely hopeless.
And when I say he was a wanted man, I'm not kidding. The danger was 100% real. Get this, in 1896, he's in London, and agents from the Qing government literally kidnap him off the street. They hold him prisoner in the Chinese legation, and the plan is to secretly ship him back to China for execution. The only reason he survived is because one of his old teachers from medical school found out and tipped off the British press. It became this huge international incident, and overnight, that ordeal made him famous, a heroic figure, especially in the West.
Okay, so after all that, after all the failures, all the planning, all the heartbreak, the revolution finally happens. But here's the crazy part. It wasn't one of his grand plans. It was almost an accident, and it caught everybody by surprise, including Sun Yat-sen himself.
This is one of my favorite little tidbits of history. It's just perfect irony. So the Wuchang Uprising kicks off, and it's the one that actually works. It's the domino that topples China's 2,000-year-old dynastic system. And where is the great revolutionary, the man who dedicated his life to this? He's in Denver, Colorado, trying to raise money. Can you imagine? He finds out that his life's dream has come true by reading about it in a local American newspaper. Incredible.
So naturally, he drops everything and rushes back to China. And even though he wasn't even there when it happened, his name, his reputation was just that big. The delegates from the different provinces get together and they elect him. They make him the very first provisional president of the new Republic of China. And just like that, on January 1st, 1912, thousands of years of imperial rule in China were over.
So, what was his vision for this new China? Well, it all boiled down to his core philosophy, the three principles of the people. It's pretty straightforward. First, nationalism, getting China unified and kicking out foreign influence. Second, democracy, a government of the people.
And third, people's livelihood, making sure everyone had a decent standard of living. This was his big blueprint for a modern China. But there was a huge problem. Sun had the ideas, the vision, but this other guy, a military strongman named Yuan Shikai, had the guns. He had the army. So to make sure the emperor actually gave up the throne and to prevent a massive civil war right off the bat, Sun had to make a tough choice. He cut a deal. He agreed to step down as president and let Yuan Shikai take over. It was a purely pragmatic move, but boy, it was one that was going to come back to bite him.
And sure enough, Yuan Shikai almost immediately tries to make himself the new emperor. The whole thing's a disaster. After he dies, China completely fractures. It just shatters into a bunch of territories run by these competing warlords. So Sun looks at this mess and realizes, okay, what I was doing before, it's not going to work anymore. I need a whole new playbook.
This kicks off the final and maybe most practical phase of his life. He's learned from his mistakes. So, step 1, he reboots his political party, the Kuomintang, the KMT, and makes it a much more disciplined, organized force. Step 2, he knows he can't do it alone, so he looks for allies. He actually forms an alliance called the First United Front with the brand new Chinese Communist Party and their backers in the Soviet Union. And step 3, probably the most crucial move of all, he realized he needed his own army. So he founded the Wampo Military Academy to train a new generation of loyal officers. And here he is, right at the opening of the academy in 1924. And that guy, standing right beside him, that's the academy's first commandant, a young protege of his named Chiang Kai-shek. Keep an eye on him. This place, this academy, would produce the very generals who would go on to fight for control of the country. Just maybe not in the way Sun was hoping for.
And that really brings us to the end of his life and the messy, complicated beginning of his legacy. See, Sun had put all the pieces on the board. He'd set the stage for one last big push to finally unify China, but he himself would never get to see the final act.
He was in Beijing actually trying to negotiate a peaceful end to the chaos when his health just gave out. He died of cancer on March 12, 1925. He was only 58. They say his last words were, "Peace, struggle, save China." The father of the revolution was gone, and his work was nowhere near finished. And his death left behind a huge power vacuum. That shaky alliance he'd cobbled together between his own nationalists and the communists, it just disintegrated almost instantly. Both sides started pointing fingers, both claiming that they were the true heirs to Sun Yat-sen's vision. And that argument, well, that argument sparked the Chinese Civil War, which would tear the country apart for decades.
Which brings us full circle, right back to where we started. If you go to Nanjing today, which was the capital of the original Republic of China, you'll see a statue in his grand mausoleum. But then you go to Beijing, to Tiananmen Square, and you'll see this giant portrait of him put up by the communist government on special occasions. Both sides still lay claim to him. It's really something to see.
So we have to end with that central question. This was a man who dedicated every waking moment of his life to creating one unified China. And yet today, his name is used by two opposing governments. So what is his real legacy? Is he the one single bridge that might, just maybe, one day connect the two sides? Or is he actually the foundation stone on which their deep, tragic division was built? And that's the question that still hangs in the air almost 100 years later.